Okay, apparently Classic WoW has a serious problem.
Classic World of Warcraft has a serious problem. It's getting worse, and there is no reason to think that things will improve, because this problem stems from the very people responsible for the game, Blizzard Entertainment.
Oh my god, he's so right. Jesus Christ.
So what is this problem? The short answer is monetization, and how it drives Blizzard's game development philosophy. But to explain why this is such an issue, we need to dig a little deeper, and that means taking a trip back in time all the way to 2004 and the launch of World of Warcraft, and a very different era of gaming.
La 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 la.
Back in the early 2000s, when WoW was being developed, online gaming was very much in its infancy. Yes, MMOs like EverQuest, Asheron's Call, and Ultima Online had existed for years by this point, and other genres had captured their own gaming audience too, with titles such as Unreal Tournament, StarCraft, and Counter-Strike. Still, this was a far cry from today's era, where online gaming is arguably the default way of playing for many. WoW came out years before the rise of Call of Duty and League of Legends, not to mention the popular games of the last decade like Fortnite, and hell, even Minecraft is young compared to WoW. And the relevance of this is that it helps to explain why early WoW was monetized so differently to the online games of today, including modern retail World of Warcraft. So at launch, World of Warcraft made its money in two ways. Firstly, you had to actually buy the game, and as far as I'm aware, you did have to physically buy the game, as in, go to your local game shop, find a lovely boxed copy, pay for it, and come home.
For me, whenever TBC was released, I had to order my game through the delivery guy, you know? And my delivery guy was wait because his car like broke down somewhere, I don't know. I used to call him every 5 minutes. Dude, where's my game? Where's my game? My TBC game. And yeah, eventually it came. I think I was 1 day late for TBC though.
Now I did say prepare for some nostalgia with this video, and I'm sure all of us older players have that sweet memory of the day we bought WoW. I was only 13 myself, and I went with my mum to go and get it. Afterwards we went to a nearby cafe and I spent about 40 minutes yapping my head off to her about all the cool adventures I was going to go on and how I was going to tame this Yeti as my hunter pet. Honestly, being a kid is such a magical experience, and that memory is an absolute treasure to me. I know I'm getting older, but the days of buying boxed copies of video games from a shop, man, you didn't always strike gold, but when you did, awesome feeling. So, as I've said, the first method of monetization was actually buying the game itself. The second form of monetization is one we all know well, because it's remained consistent over the last 20 years of WoW, the subscription. Every month, WoW players...
Is this guy actually complaining about buying a game? He wants it for free? I mean... Okay. Let's listen, maybe there's more points there.
Players fork out money to play the game. It says a lot about how different the world was in the early years of Warcraft that many of us had to practically take debating classes in order to convince our parents that paying a monthly online fee for their child to play a video game wasn't a recipe for disaster. In my case, I was only allowed to play WoW if I bought game time cards from the shop, and I did this for years before I switched to paying online.
Same here, like I had to make a card. I think I made a card during TBC, but before TBC, I was using those prepaid cards. And I remember once my my game time expired and I didn't have a prepaid. And the guys from my guild bought me a 2 months one, man, because they wanted me to come to the raid. It was such a wholesome moment. They bought game time for me and I was like, yay, let's go, let's raid. I was so happy. That was probably the best presents I got that year. A 2 months game card. Come with us to raid. Yes, I'll come.
But once you'd figured this stuff out, you had your game, and Blizzard had about as much money as they could reliably squeeze out of you, short of releasing the next boxed expansion. A one-time fee for the boxed copy and a monthly subscription. That was it. And you know what? It worked really well.
Yeah.
Or so we thought.
Oh.
You see, whilst WoW was soaring in the West, growing an audience of millions and playing a pivotal role in the development of online gaming culture, other important innovations were taking place in the East, particularly around monetization. Now, the concept of microtransactions in video games is so widespread now that it feels pointless even explaining it, but back in the days of vanilla WoW, it was essentially unheard of in the West. Some say that MapleStory was the first Eastern MMO to incorporate microtransactions into its monetization, but whatever the case may be, over time the notion that there were more ways to make money from an online game than the initial purchase price and or subscription fee started to filter its way westward. And it's hardly surprising that these ideas took root as more and more online games followed in WoW's footsteps, carving out their own loyal audiences online as the companies behind them grew and grew. World of Warcraft's history of microtransactions really begins in the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, which is ironic considering that there were more concurrent players then than at any point.
Well, there were some cash up items even before Wrath of the Lich King, wasn't? Didn't we have like server transfer? What else was it? Server transfer, and there was a couple other things in the shop.
Before or since.
I haven't really used them though.
Copies of the base game plus its 2 first expansions being purchased and more monthly subscribers paying to play the game. I say this because it's important to remember that as much as one might argue that increased monetization of a game is necessary if the team is expanding and producing more content, Wrath, TBC, not to mention the massive vanilla WoW itself, I mean, are we really going to suggest that they had less investment and therefore less content than, say, Warlords of Draenor? Please. At first, the microtransactions in WoW were very micro indeed. Paid game services like name and server changes had been around for some time, but it was the inclusion of the Celestial Steed mount added to the new cash shop in April 2010 that really marked the beginning of a new era. But honestly, none of us really cared that much at the time. It's important to remember that the culture of players was somewhat different back then. Experienced players weren't interested in flying around on a store-bought mount. They wanted
This was when Asmongold was growing, right, on Twitch. Wasn't this when maybe I'm confusing, but he started doing Wrath of the Lich King, I think, to stream.
Invincible or the time-lost Proto-Drake.
Look at that. He failed one of those votes.
Something which would show off their skill and dedication to the game. So if you were seen on a store mount back then, all that it indicated to many of us was that you were either new or bad at the game, not that you had something cool.
This is such an important thing that he's pointing out. Because back in the day, if you were caught buying gold, it was bad. You would even get kicked from a guild. If you were found out buying things from the cash shop, you were like laughed at. It became normal nowadays to buy gold. People, even streamers like brag with that and stuff like that. It's so important because we didn't accept microtransaction in the West. I think not even people in the East didn't really accept them, but it was shoved down their throat, you know. But here we had some fucking dignity, boys. Like, a game wouldn't succeed if it had microtransactions because people wouldn't play it. It would say like, fuck you. You know, like, no.
Blizzard even acknowledged this themselves by adding an NPC to the Cataclysm expansion later that year called Johnny Awesome, a blood elf in Hillsbrad foothills who would proclaim his skill and experience,
they did
all
it,
the while riding a celestial steed named Twinkles and annoying everyone around him. It's ironic that Blizzard would mock a type of player that they were actually beginning to tailor the game for. But really, this just goes to show how easy.
Wow, they added the mount and then they got backlash. And then they put an NPC in game, boys. This is nice research. I like this video. I forgot about this thing, but now it comes back to me. Beautiful.
It was for the company to introduce these cosmetic microtransactions. It was a joke. One made them.
I'm not sure if you know, guys, but recently, whenever TBC was released, classic TBC, there was a new mount added, Face Hunter, like one of those lizards. and people started spitting on everyone with that mount. So Blizzard, what they had to do, they had to remove the spit emote. So you could no longer spit on players, you would have to spit on the ground. Because it was offensive to the people that buy the store mounts. Wasn't it like that? Like, I was like, wow.
Themselves were able to acknowledge. And as usual, something which would go on to define the game was allowed to quietly slip in without any real resistance. We've seen this with so many features in WoW, but I doubt when we look back in the years to come, anything will have had as much of an impact as microtransactions. And now I'm honestly wondering, how many celestial steeds did Blizzard manage to sell because dumb teenagers thought Johnny Awesome was actually funny? You know what? I don't want to know.
Johnny Awesome.
Since 2010, microtransactions in WoW have gradually increased with each expansion. More cosmetic items, more mounts, and more services too. Mists of Pandaria was the first expansion to introduce the level boost, allowing players to bypass what was at the time a long and somewhat tedious leveling process.
Level boost.
All at the low price of...
You know, this is the thing. They didn't focus on making the leveling fun again. They just acknowledge, okay, leveling is bad. Let's just make people pay to skip it. You know? That's the dead... That's when World of Warcraft starting to die, boys. Don't use this part of the game and try to make it somehow great, simple, and fun to do. Nope. Just let people pay and skip it altogether.
Several months worth of subscription money. And it was during the truly exceptional Warlords of Draenor expansion that Blizzard added the WoW token to the game, arguably making it pay to win in the process. If you aren't familiar, the token can be purchased for real money on the cash shop and then sold in-game for gold, which can in turn be used to pay for boosts from other players through challenging...
Was this the death of WoW here? When was this added? But I think this was the death of WoW pretty much. I think this is the time when they stopped showing subscribers numbers. But yeah, this was like... I don't even know how to name it.
Endgame content. I know this sounds hard to grasp, deliberately so in my opinion, but what this means is that through a multi-step process, a player could effectively pay real money to gain access to the best gear, titles and achievements in the game, bypassing the challenge of working their way up, and, when you think about it, the very reason for playing the game in the first place. It used to be that people paid to play WoW. It was a great game, and those of us lucky enough to discover it early when we were still kids loved it. Now people pay not to have to play WoW, to skip any and all content deemed too difficult, too time-consuming, or worst of all, too reliant on actually working with other players in a massively multiplayer online game. They pay to not play. Madness, I tell you. And finally arriving at the current age of retail WoW, microtransactions have become accepted, however unwillingly, as just a part of the game and the direction it's taken. Some players are happy with it, and others have realised with grim acceptance that the cash shop simply isn't going away. I would argue personally that a big reason why Blizzard has pushed retail WoW towards a more cosmetic, collectible focused game is because it encourages microtransaction purchases. If players are mostly interested in what new cosmetics they can get on their character, if that is the mark of an accomplished player rather than their raiding and PvP achievements, or simply their social experience in the game, then why not pay real money for the new cool looking stuff, especially if this is becoming increasingly normalised as just what WoW players do. But hey, that's just one of my retail WoW conspiracy theories. But this video isn't about retail, and I can already hear you asking, Vulgrin, what does this have to do with Classic? Why is the monetization history of WoW and the current practices in retail important to Classic WoW, and why is this such a problem? Well, now that we've covered the history of the game, from 2004 all the way to 2024, now that you know how we got to this point, I can explain it very clearly. I don't think Classic WoW makes enough money for Blizzard. I don't think it makes enough money for them to invest the necessary...
I had the same idea over and over in my stream. Classic WoW doesn't make the money, boys. That's why they kill it. Like, how much money do you think they made with Season of Discovery? There's nothing. They don't sell anything there. They don't sell gold token. They don't sell server transfers. They only get sub numbers. So there's no real reason to develop Season of Discovery, I guess. Or a priority, at least. There's not a priority. Because the people in the company, they look at the numbers. Okay, Cataclysm brought that much in. Okay. Retail brought that much in. Good numbers. Season of Discovery, nothing. It's only subscription. What is this? Doesn't matter that it's a lot of subscription. The subscription is the same for all the games. You know, like, you can access like retail and you can access like classic for one subscription. It's like, and they go like, okay, priority Cataclysm. What's with the accent, boys?
Resources which are required for Classic to be at its best. You know what? I'll go even further. I don't think Classic can make enough money for Blizzard to give it the resources it deserves. Not currently, anyway. And for proof of this, just look at Blizzard's own claims from back in 2019 when Classic WoW first launched. Remember all your old friends who were coming back to play the game? Remember all the streamers and games journalists that were raving about
Member Classic. Dude, the Classic. Oh my god, dude. I can't believe we made it, dude. I can't believe we actually got in 2019 Classic servers. And we got to experience this. This was beautiful. Holy shit.
How good the experience was going to be. It was a gaming phenomenon back in August 2019. And you know what? That was proven to be the case in the revenue figures. Subscriber revenue grew by 223% in August compared to the previous month. And that is a massive achievement, which is reflected in how popular Classic WoW was. It was great. But you know what's even crazier than that figure?
Wow.
The fact that it actually made less money than the previous year's August when Battle for Azeroth.
So, yeah, I mean, it is Classic. So, honestly, listen. I do support Blizzard developing a World of Warcraft 2 game, a Classic 2 game or something, and with a cash shop. I do support that because I play BDO with a cash shop and some of the items in the cash shop are not intrusive. But what would those items in cash shop be? That's the thing. The skins? Maybe if you make an entire new game, maybe skins. What else you could put? I don't even know. A pet that loots for you? Like in BDO? I don't know what people would accept though, because in order for a game to keep on thriving, I think it needs to bring a lot of revenue to a company. In order for a company to keep investing into developing a game and making it better, it has to bring a lot of revenue. If not, they won't put the energy and the resources into further developing that game. I keep saying that recently I played BDO, and BDO gets content every week. Every week there's a new event, there's a new something, there's a new Land of the Morning Light expansion or whatever, a new pair of gloves, rings, things, whatever. People wait for the weekly to see what's the content gonna be for the next week. But they do get in a lot of money. They do, I think I went back for 30 days to BDO and I spent like $100+ only for a month of gameplay. Not for pay to win things, for permanent things, like, yeah. So if they make a Classic 2 or a World of Warcraft 2, they need to get more money in. And the way they would do it is to find something to sell that can... I don't even know. But if not, they're not going to put the energy to develop the game further.
Came out. Yeah, that same Battle for Azeroth that was considered by so many of us to be absolute trash. It still made more money than Classic WoW did on its launch. And ultimately, this is the best example of what I'm talking about. It is impossible for Classic to make the same amount of money that retail can, regardless of how good a product we get in either version of the game. And this is what is already leading to delays and disappointment in our current Classic projects right now. Now, let me be honest, when I said...
I can assure you, if Season of Discovery would have made Blizzard millions of dollars, based on the amount of people that they were playing, Blizzard would have put like more people on the team. They would have like went, okay, make this good. But since it's not making a lot of money, that's a really good point here.
that Classic WoW has a serious problem, I was talking about old school Classic WoW. I'm talking about Season of Discovery, Vanilla Era servers, and any potential TBC, Wrath, other seasonal, or perhaps even Classic Plus servers we may get in the future.
Imagine we are asking for a fresh realm. Do you know what fresh realm gives them? If they release today a fresh realm, they're losing money, boys. If they're releasing a fresh realm, they are losing money. Because if they release a fresh realm, people that play like Cataclysm, people that play the new expansion, whatever, the retail, are going to move probably from the retail or from Cataclysm to the Era server, fresh server. And they're not getting new subscription because it's the same, so they're not getting any extra money. And guess what? They're not spending any more money in retail shop, and neither in Cataclysm. So with that being said, they're losing money by releasing a new game. It's simple. How many new subscription do you think you get? Because people that are addicted to WoW, they're already playing like Seasons of Discovery, or they're already in Classic Era, you know? Let's say you get a bunch of new subscribers, but still.
Because Classic Cataclysm is largely invulnerable to this problem. It has a cash shop, it has microtransactions, and as Classic continues to move through the expansions, which appears to be Blizzard's intention with this project, these microtransactions will just develop further and the shop will expand just like it did back in retail, because Classic will become retail over time. Yes, it'll always lag behind where the current retail expansion is, but the ethos, the design philosophy, and most importantly, the monetization philosophy will grow increasingly similar to that of what we have today with retail WoW. I genuinely believe that as Classic goes through the expansions, from Cataclysm to MoP to, God forbid, Warlords of Draenor, we're heading for a somewhat dystopian future in which both retail and Classic players are buying stuff from the shop, maybe even boosts in increasingly similar versions of the game, which I'm sure if you're a shareholder with the company is just delightful. As a player, it sounds like a nightmare to me. How long, I wonder, before the Classic tagline is dropped in favour of something more fitting for such a retail-like game, such as remix or remastered perhaps? But what about the other Classic, the old school versions of WoW? What about the Season of Discovery players, or those who are currently crying out for fresh vanilla, TBC and Wrath servers, for a new progression through the original game? What about those who are actually setting up their own progression projects on Deviant Delight right now because Blizzard...
I suppose by Aladar. You really got involved into the fresh on Deviant Delight.
Don't do it. Many will tell you that Classic WoW as a concept was always rooted in the desire to go back, to return to old pre-Cataclysm Azeroth. Yes, people were split on whether they just wanted vanilla or progression through to the end of Wrath, but there was always an understanding that the term Classic, in reference to World of Warcraft, has always referred to the original trilogy of Vanilla WoW, the Burning Crusade, and Wrath of the Lich King.
Yep, no one asked for Kata, boys. There were no people in the streets with forks. We want Kata! We want Kata! They could have easily just leave permanent Wrath of the Lich King era and start over with... I mean, listen, I think Season of Discovery was too successful, boys. I'm actually subscribing to the idea that Season of Discovery was so good that they actually killed it on purpose. I think like they killed... Season of Discovery was supposed to fulfill the Classic need, because they're no longer Classic servers. I don't know exactly why they developed it so much towards retail and all the dailies and all the shit.
What are the prospects then for these versions of the game? And, dare I say it, what about Classic Plus? And let me just say, I do wish all of those players who want to play Cata Classic, MoP Classic, Legion Classic, all the best. I don't want anyone to have a bad time in their game of choice. More power to you. But for those of us who are primarily concerned with the older versions of WoW I just mentioned, the future looks very uncertain, because those versions of classic WoW simply can't make money for Blizzard like retail or even classic Cataclysm can. It's crazy to think it, but Season of Discovery is actually less monetizable than vanilla WoW was back in 2004, because you don't need to buy a copy of the game to play it, just have the monthly sub, which is of course shared across all versions of WoW, making it incredibly difficult for Blizzard to be able to clearly point to a certain slice of the player base and say, ah, those are the guys who are here purely for Season of Discovery. And don't get me wrong, this is not me advocating that Blizzard find a way to squeeze more money out of the players and incentivize work on SOD. Far from it. The reality is that despite the fun I've had in it, Season of Discovery doesn't add a whole lot new to the game. Just some revamped instances, a few events and rune abilities, which, let's face it, are almost all abilities which already exist at some point in WoW's life and have been retroactively added to Classic. It's a fun game, no doubt, but the amount of new stuff really does not justify paying more as a player than we already are. And fortunately for us players, it's unlikely that Blizzard will ever add the WoW token or a cash shop to SOD, because that would completely destroy the vanilla spirit that the game is supposedly based on, doubtless turning a great number of players, myself included, off the experience completely. But this leaves them in a strange position, because no matter how well Season of Discovery performs, no matter how many people are subscribing primarily or exclusively to play it, it's practically impossible for SOD to ever be as profitable as the other game modes. All it takes is a returning retail player to purchase alongside their monthly sub a few cosmetic items from the store or a character boost, possibly a server transfer or two, and before you know it, that one retail player has put more money into Blizzard's pocket in a single day than half a dozen Season of Discovery players do in a month.
I had the same theory about bots. A bot is a better customer and a more loyal customers to Blizzard than you are. I don't know, you pay your monthly sub, you play one game, that's $13. A bot comes, buys a new account, buys a boost, maybe a server transfer so they can move gold around, and then they get banned after 3 months. And then he buys all over again. So the bot spent already like $200, while you spent, I don't know, 30, 40, 50, you know? So of course, bots are better customers than actual players.
Month. The same applies to Vanilla Era, Hardcore, and, should Blizzard ever listen, the fresh TBC and Wrath servers that many players are crying out for right now. And this explains to me why we don't have Phase 4 of SOD yet, why we don't have a new set of fresh classic servers, and why such efforts have been made to subliminally encourage players to focus on CADA or Mop Remix or preparing for the war within, instead of wondering when they'll get an update on their game, and why Phase 4 for SOD seems so lackluster already despite its delay. All of it comes down to monetization, to profit margins, and Blizzard's sheer disinterest. And the worst part of all of this is that I'm certain these versions of World of Warcraft, the Era servers, Season of Discovery, Hardcore, are still very profitable. I know many players who return to the game to play SOD and have been subbed for 6 months now for that reason alone. We know millions of players worldwide returned for Classic in 2019 because they wanted to experience the joy of old WoW once more, and that 220% increase in sub revenue, that's gotta count for something, right? It would cost nothing more than maintenance fees for there to be a few new old school WoW servers for Wrath, Era and TBC, and I don't doubt there would be tens of thousands of subbing players as a minimum who would play these versions of the game. We're seeing players organise their own
just 1 mega server per region. I think 1 mega server per region is more than enough, boys. What do you guys think?
Server projects as we speak. Old school WoW is still very profitable, and in 2004 that would have been enough for Blizzard. But now, I'm not so sure. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is just a big conspiracy theory. Phase 4 of SOD will be a massive experience which paves the way for a full...
Listen, he has some really strong arguments though there. And like, some good points. I guess like as a company, you would look at the numbers and you would check, but wait a minute. This game is so successful, 600,000 players. Where's the money? Right? Show me the money. And all the decisions in a big company is made based on money. So he's not really... He's right.
Developed, fully resourced Classic Plus. But honestly, I doubt it. And I'm not holding my breath. In fact, sadly, for the first time in well over a year, I'm barely even playing WoW at the moment. Because Blizzard,
same here.
As much as you might wish it, we
Same
don't
here.
all want to play Kata or Mop Remix, and we're not all desperate to play The War Within when it comes out. I wish those players who do the very best, and I hope their gaming experience is great. But there are many of us who just want to play old school WoW, who campaigned for that version of Classic for years, and who don't want to see it die because small teams of hobbyist private server developers put more time, resources and passion into their Classic projects than you do, Blizzard. Anyway, sorry if this was a bit of a rant, guys. I've been quite frustrated with the game for some time, and the fact that despite wanting to make new content, wanting to play with my friends and you guys, I feel that Classic hasn't delivered the game environment to do that in recent months. I'm not prepared to pretend that it's all sunshine and rainbows for some perceived benefits to my YouTube channel. I'll always tell you how it is, and keep the passion alive here. Let me know what you think about the state of the game, what you're playing, and what expectations you have for the future of Classic WoW. Am I being unreasonable, overly cynical, or do you agree with my appraisal of the situation? Remember to check me out on Twitch if you want to chat with me live. I stream every Monday and Friday at 7 PM UK time. As always, I've been Vulgrin, and until next time, my friends, take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Good video, boys, from Vulgrin. Let me give you a link. It was really chill to watch. The music was good. The scenes were good. The script was good. It's a 20-minute long video, but some points were made, maybe a bit over-talked and repeated, but such a good video. Let's move on.